do you ever get DMs like, adopt me? I walked in and there was pills spilt and she had taken some. What are you gonna do if they bust in the door?
Open up my heart and you'll find we don't ever have to look too far. You don't have to cover up your scars. You're perfect, darling, just the way you are. So before you think to rip yourself apart, open up my heart and you'll find love, 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 love.
Good morning, Keep It Crazy family. So today is a little bit of a story time / answering some of your foster care and adoption questions that you've had. So let's get into it. We're gonna start with this one really quick because I do have a little bit of a story with this one. As a former foster child, do you ever get DMs like, adopt me, from watching The Family? The answer is yes. We have gotten several of those. We actually got one, I think it was in like Kansas, and we actually requested the case file on it, which was really interesting. It wasn't the best fit, but we really hoped, and I reached out to the caseworker, like, please find her a forever home, and hopefully she found that home with that. But we got one that was convinced that we were going to adopt him, and he actually sent me all the adoption paperwork. He sent me like his therapist's name and phone number, his caseworker's name and phone number, and it was so incredibly heartbreaking. And he was like, no, I know I'm meant to be in your family. And we didn't have our license open at the time. It wasn't anything like that, but it was just like, oh, and I just prayed that he found his forever home. So yes, we do get those quite often, and they're just heartbreaking. I do wish we could adopt every kid. Like, I would if we could, but
there have been even adults that have like slid into my DMs like, please ask your mom to adopt me. So
I had one that actually found what adoption agency I was licensed through and contacted our adoption caseworker, but they were an adult. And my caseworker called me and she was like, so this adult wants you to adopt them? And I was like, oh no, like they're contacting you. So that has happened too, where they've gone straight to my caseworker. Is it? Okay, real quick, I do have Hallie a part of this video because she has been there since day one. She has been there for every foster placement that we've had, so I do feel like she'd bring some good insight into some of these situations. Real quick, another one. I have a couple that are completely like heartbreaking stories, and one of those is I actually got a call from her it was probably a year or two ago, but she gave me a call. It was one of our previous foster placements, which I know one of the questions is, do you stay in contact after they age out or if you don't end up adopting them? And she called me. It actually gave me some good closure / healing to the situation. So we had this girl, and she, the night of her 18th birthday, had tried to end it, and I walked in and there was pills spilt and she had taken some, and I rode, with the ambulance and to the hospital with her, and the next morning was her 18th birthday. And the caseworkers all showed up, and because when you have an incident like that, you have to immediately report it, and the caseworkers come out, your worker comes out, they do an investigation. Like, there is a full thing that goes into a situation like that. My caseworker was like, she's 18 now, and because of the choice that she made, if you keep her in your home, it puts the other kids in danger. But they said that basically if she stayed in our home, that we couldn't keep the current foster kids we had. And real quick, the pills she took was ibuprofen, and she had gone to the store herself, because you have to keep all your medication locked up, but she had gone to the store and bought it herself. So it wasn't like something we left out or something, that it was just, we did get written up though because she had that, just on a side note.
I feel like that's the part of fostering teens that a lot of parents don't get into, because you see all the like success stories, or I really bonded with my 16-year-old, or they're my you know, they're doing so well now in life, and it's like, there are so many of those kind of situations that happen, and it's like, it sucks, and it's so hard. I mean, luckily I was like, this happened at night, so like all of the kids were in bed. I didn't even know what had happened until like a few years ago when you actually like explained it to all of us, and like Mom was even surprised, like, none of us woke up with, like, the ambulances.
The ambulance were there. Police were all up and down the hallways. Like the kids slept
Everyone slept through it.
It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I, the next morning, was like, so how am I going to explain this? Because they were little. And I was like, how am I going to explain this to them? And I was like, so about last night. And they were all like, what happened last night? And it was just like
no idea.
It didn't affect the younger kids at all, that whole situation.
Thinking back on it now, like, I'm glad that I didn't witness any of it, but I'm like, looking at it from an adult's perspective, I feel so bad that you had to go through that. And it was just like, you know, you had all these other kids in the home that you had to worry about, and it was just like, that must have been scary.
It was scary. And Aaron was working nights, so Aaron was not there for this whole incident. He was at work. And and he worked out of the house at night. So it was literally just me, it was just a scary situation.
I could not imagine.
But in that moment, though, we had talked to the caseworker, and she couldn't end up still living with us. But I still loved her more than anything, and I still wanted to stay in contact. And I gave her a cell phone, and I was like, I'm here to help you however I can. And it was just this whole thing. But over the years, we lost contact. She ended up moving up to like Colorado, and we just kind of lost contact over the years. But years later, she did end up calling me. And she was like, I want to apologize. And she's like, I pushed you away. And I now see pictures of like you and your family online, and I see this. And she's like, I just want you to know that I really love and appreciate everything you did for me. And you tried to show me what unconditional love looked like, and I wasn't ready for that. And she said, and we went on and we had a really long hours long conversation about everything, but it was just so heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of times in foster care, the kids aren't ready to understand what love looks like, or it feels so foreign or off for them. And sometimes they don't end up breaking cycles and all of that. And it's the most incredibly heartbreaking thing ever. But I will say I felt like I had abandoned her for a long time. Like I felt responsible, and I felt like, am I doing this right? Should I have done something differently? Is there something I could have done to change the situation? But after talking to her years later, she was like, no, I didn't feel abandoned. I knew what you guys wanted to do, and I knew you guys were trying everything you could, but I didn't want it at the time. And it was a hard realization to come to and to understand that. And so it took years to understand that side of it.
I loved her a lot too, and I'm glad that we had that closure, because like obviously I wasn't there for the phone call, but you know, I got to hear about how she's doing, and like, yeah, so I wish the best for her.
I do too.
One, a fork for each of you.
Oh, we're getting food here. It's a good house dressing, Erin.
Yeah?
Okay.
Approved. Now getting on to your questions. Sorry for a side story.
Oh wait, was that the only kid you wanted to talk about when talking about like kids that
didn't end up working out?
Yeah, like do you still stay in contact with?
Oh, do you still stay in contact? So unfortunately, if they are under the age of 18, it is dependent on where they get placed. Like if it's like a grandparent or back to bio parents, it's their choice if they get to. So most of those, unfortunately, choose not to have contact. However, ones that have aged out, I think she was the only one that like aged out with us.
Besides Tristan.
Yeah, I mean Tristan. But would I like to have contact with them? Yes. Is it always possible? Unfortunately, no.
There are a few that I've wanted to get in contact with, but just because of like where they went back to or where they were placed, like it's just not realistic to like try and contact them right now, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, I did for a long time with one of the boys that we were placed with, and then he ended up going to a different family, and I did stay in contact with them and I follow them, you know. But is it hard to integrate children into the family?
Okay.
Here's your response on this.
Honestly, no. I feel like it's never been hard for me. I'm very empathetic. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very empathetic, and I feel like I was very prepared to take in all of the siblings. Like, I was so, and you can attest to this.
No, I agree.
I was so ready to have, you know, all the siblings come in. I was, like, ready to give them the clothes off my back. I just wanted everyone to feel welcome and loved because, and I don't know why. Like, was there, like, a class that you took me to that was, like, you know, these kids have gone through a hard time, or was I always just, like...
I think you were always an empathetic child, but I did sit you down and were like, listen, these kids are coming with nothing.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, I mean, you got to witness, out of all of the kids, you got to witness situations where we're pulling up to a parking lot and a kid is getting in and I'm like, here's your new brother, and he had nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and you were like, oh my gosh. And you every time were like, what can I give him? What can I do? And it just always, I don't know. So I feel like you were just always welcoming to any kid that came along the way.
Yeah. And I tried to be because, like, I remember every single time I would meet one of the new kids, I'd be like, you know what, I know there's a lot of us. Don't worry about getting all the names right away. That's, like, my favorite thing when someone new is, like, being introduced to the family, like, kids, friends, whatever. There's a lot of us, and I feel like it's a lot of pressure to, like, you know, figure out who all these people are and, like, whatever, and I always try to, like, ease that anxiety for them. Because I feel like that's what I would want if I was in their situation. So, I feel like I've always just been really good at, like, putting myself in their shoes. Like, I don't know exactly what you went through, but I'm here to empathize and help you, like, get adjusted to this new environment. Like, you can trust me. I'm here to help. So,
yeah, I will say for the most part, I feel like everyone integrated really easily. Now, I will say that was when everyone was younger. I will say it is a little harder as the kids are getting older and teens and doing all their things and doing this and that. Do I feel like it's a little more difficult? Yes. However, I feel like it's still pretty easy for the most part. Okay, at what moment do they trust that they have a forever home? That's a really good question, actually.
it's different for every kid.
Every kid is so different with this.
For Bella, it wasn't until her adoption day.
Right.
And she had been living with us for, like, what, a year or two?
A year... No, it wasn't quite a year. Right under a year.
Under a year. Yeah.
But I would say Bella took the longest. Like, she didn't call us mom and dad until adoption day. Like, she was very skeptical, and I think it took a long time. Same with Hannah. I feel like Hannah took a long time because and I talked about this in a previous video, but some of our kids had been adopted prior to our house. And I will say it takes them a lot longer to trust, because even after adoption, they're like, oh, well, then are you going to turn the switch and end up, acting differently or whatnot? And I feel like it took years to build that trust. And then I feel like there's other kids that we've gotten in our home. Savannah, for example, Savannah was like instant. I don't know, she just fit right in.
Yeah.
And just like, it just felt like she instantly trusted us, and everything just instantly knew she was our forever daughter. So, I don't know.
And like with Brody, he was a baby. So he just, just fit right in.
Yeah. Okay, would you ever adopt someone who is a part of the LGBT community?
Yes. I feel like that one's kind of a no-brainer. Like,
right. And it's not really a question that we were like, oh, this is going to determine whether we adopt. Like, that was never even a thing. Like, it's just...
I'm sure that there are some people out there that, have a real problem with that and wouldn't be cool with that. Same with, like, if a child from a certain ethnicity came into their home. Like, there are people in the world that are going to judge kids based off of that. And that is the wrong attitude to go into it, because these kids just need a loving home.
Yeah.
So,
agree. How do you deal with tricky questions that come up from any kids? Oh my gosh, we've gotten some tricky. I should do a video where I just literally film the questions that I get throughout the day. Because some of them are wild, and then some of them are like, I don't know. But anyway, some foster kids that we've gotten, though, when they first come into the home, you don't know the situation they're coming from. And so they sometimes will bring situations up that even I'm like I had one, this is one of our first foster children too. The car, our other house, like when there's a cul-de-sac in front of it, and so cars would drive, the lights would shine directly in the windows. And they were coming in, and this is, mind you, a 3-year-old boy, okay? Or no, he was 4 years old at this point. But the light was shining in. He was like, oh my gosh. And he was like, do you think the police are after us? And I was like, no, honey, like the police aren't after us. And he goes, yeah, but what are you going to do if they bust in the door? And I was like, first of all, no one's busting in the door. But it was so incredibly sad because I was like, the fact that this kid is thinking this at 4 years old and this is what's playing through his mind. Mind you, this is the same kid that later on I had the news on, and he was like, Mom, Dad, at the news. And the caseworker didn't tell me anything about the background. I didn't know anything. I actually learned it on the news. So
his parents were on the news?
Yeah, they were, for what happened to him. Like, what happened to his siblings set, it literally was broadcast all over the news, and that's how I learned about the kid that I had in foster care in my home went through based on that, which was crazy. So some of those are incredibly heartbreaking, and it's like you have to figure out which age appropriate to explain to them and not, but a lot of things that they already know are not age appropriate. So it is a tricky situation with that. How long does the process to become fully licensed to foster take? So I would say from the time we started classes to the time when we got our first foster child was 6 months. So it could be longer, it could be shorter, depending on your area and whatnot. But I would say roughly 6 months is what I would put out there. Okay, how do you deal with difficult behaviors due to trauma? I didn't know if you had any insight. I was just curious what you thought on that one. I think trying to understand what behaviors are actually behaviors and what behaviors are trauma induced.
Here comes the main character.
She's here. They're both here. Did you guys finish your bones? We tried giving them bones before we started so that they would do their thing. But I would say a tricky one, or one that comes up a lot in foster care, is hoarding food. And it's a really tricky one of them feeling like there isn't going to be enough food, and that's why they're hoarding it, and or you don't want them having rotten food in it or overeating to where they throw up or all of those kind of things. And so that's one that's a little tricky. But I would say other ones like lying, for example, it's really, really common in foster care for lying to occur. And it can be lying about simple things like I actually took one of our kids to a restaurant that had just opened. It was brand new. And we were really excited, and we're going in, and they're like, oh yeah, I used to come here all the time with my, bio mom. And I'm like, it just opened. It is normal for a kid to fantasize that their previous life was better or had different positives in it. And it's actually a normal thing for a kid to lie about stuff like that. And it's something that needs to be worked out in therapy as far as creating reality versus a fantasized world. And it's a whole thing with that. So that one's kind of normal. And also lying when it comes to, like, say a kid, like, I don't know, grabbed a pen off your nightstand, and I'm like, oh, did you just take my pen? And they're like, no, I didn't. But you, like, saw them do it. And that's actually a normal trauma response to... if I had to lie to survive in the past. And so they get so used to not knowing how you're going to react. And so they'll lie about everything and anything, even if it is something that you wouldn't even be mad about. And so that trust takes a long time to build, and a long time of like, hey, no, I did see you take the pen and that's okay. Let's kind of replay how that should have played out. And then you have them take the pen again, and we call it redos in our house, but I'm like, let's redo that situation. And then I'm like, did you take the pen? And then they're like, yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Can you just make sure you put it back when you're done? Like, and it's kind of replaying, and it's rewiring the brain that they don't have to live in this, you know, state of anxiety if they don't know how things are going to respond, and it's building that trust over time. But it does take a long time to build that, but lying isn't what you should get mad, like, don't lie and don't ever lie and that's not okay and blah, blah, because it's an automatic response to survival for them.
And you're reinforcing that they should be scared and that they should lie because, you know, you reacted that way. So it's, yeah.
So true. Would you get offended if a foster kid didn't want you to adopt them specifically? No. No. And we have had that happen. We talk about Hannah's older sister. She chose not to be adopted. And there are certain kids that have come along the way that don't either feel like it's a great fit and or don't want to be adopted, or whatever reason they have. And that's okay. Every home isn't right for every child. And it's not about feeling offended, I guess, in the situation, like, oh my gosh, they don't love me, or like your feelings are, I mean, obviously it is sad and it is like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I love you, but it's about finding them the right home that they do want to be adopted in. And we've had to go out and like find, okay, they want to be an only child, or this kid would, you know, feel more comfortable if they lived in this family, or whatever the case is. It's about finding their forever home and not about your feelings and wanting to, hold on to them.
Yeah, I feel like the main goal should always be foster to adopt, but sometimes you're just that placeholder in a safe place for them to kind of heal, and then they can move on.
So true. What's the best and worst thing about adoption? I would say the best part of adoption is definitely finding your forever child and having that home and like feeling the love and just, I don't know, everything about adoption. I love that part of it. I would say the worst thing about adoption is that any kid who is ever adopted has experienced some type of loss in their life. Whether that's a loss of bio family, it's a loss of a previous life, it's a loss of what life could have been. I feel like the worst part of adoption is the grief and loss that comes behind that.
I think the best part is that it's kind of like you get to choose your family. Like, you know, a lot of people, they're just like born into a family and they like either really love it or like hate it, or they're like mutual about it. But with this, it's like, you know, you get to choose, like, yeah, I want you as my sibling. And I felt that way about like all of my siblings. I just love them so much. And I also love just seeing them like grow up into adults and just like seeing them learn and like grow and, you know, doing all this stuff. So the worst part, I would say, is like saying goodbye to foster kids where it didn't end up working out, or they ended up going to like a different home, or like back to grandparents, or like, you know, stuff like that. So like saying goodbye is very hard.
How many kids total have you had in your home? Right around 40 kids we've had come in and out of our home. It's quite a bit. Who was the quickest adoption you've done? I think the quickest adoption, probably Lucas and Savannah's. I feel like theirs was really fast. But we lived in a small town where we got adoption dates like right away, right after you filed it.
Yeah.
I think theirs was the fastest. The longest was Jake's. Jake's adoption took close to 4 years. Took a long time.
Yeah, it took a while.
Do you think it's better to foster and adopt siblings together? We are thinking about adopting. Yes. When at all possible, definitely keeping siblings together is far best for them. They feel comfortable because they have someone in your home. I do feel like they end up trusting faster, though not with like Bella, we talked about that. But normally, I feel like they have this sense of comfort because their sibling is in the home, and you know, you want to keep them together.
If you can, you should. In some cases, it's best that siblings don't stay together just because of trauma, like how Evie and her sister, they couldn't be placed in a home together.
Okay, what is something that drives you crazy about the system?
How disorganized it is.
I was like, I have a few. I feel like I wish that caseworkers could be 100% honest with situations. And not saying I love caseworkers, don't get me wrong. Like, I've had a million different caseworkers, and I've had ones that are incredible, and I've had ones that just want to place a kid, and so they're willing to say whatever they want to say, and then you end up finding out all this stuff later. So I do wish that they were a little more upfront with that. But I think by far the hardest thing, or the thing that drives me the most crazy, is, and it's not even necessarily the foster care system, it's the justice system when it comes to foster care. And I know this, I don't want to get into politics or this or that, but I feel like there should be harsher punishments and harsher laws against abusing children than what there is. And I can tell you, and I said this in a previous vlog recently, but I feel like out of the around 40 kids that we have fostered, only 3 parents have actually been charged with anything. And if you guys knew, if I could tell some of the, well, I could briefly tell this one, because yeah, but there was a child in our home that had been locked in a room for years. So the best way the caseworker could describe it was that this child was being treated like a pig because the caregiver did not want to, quote, deal with the child. And they were locked in a room. They were literally thrown food in like it was scraps. They had to pee and poop in a bucket in the corner. And this child went through this for, they think, close to 2 years, but they can't give an exact time frame. And the caregiver was given nothing. They were not arrested. They were not, and amongst other abuse and things went on in that home. But, and when I asked the caseworker, like, what the heck? Like, why are we not pressing charge? Like, why is there not a justice? And she was like, well, your child can't really say time frames and can't really give exact times of when certain things happened, and we don't know if it'll hold up in court. And I was like, are you kidding me? But they had pictures. They did offer for me to see the pictures, and I have to say I did turn it down because I didn't want that image in my mind, and it was super difficult situation. Still brings me to tears just even thinking about it. But the justice system needs to start holding people accountable for their choices. So
I think the other thing too is group homes. I mean, I have heard countless stories of just awful group homes that kids have to sit in while they wait for, you know, families to want them, and it's unacceptable. I hate group homes.
Oh my gosh, I have a terrible story about a group home. So one of the kids was telling me that when they were in a group home, that the staff didn't like one of the kids in the group home. But obviously they can't put their hands on a kid. They can't, because there's obviously rules in group homes.
Yeah.
And so they would give this other child special privileges if they would beat up this other kid, and they would get rewarded for it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But it's like they can't. But then if a caseworker gets involved, they don't know what happened. They're just like, oh, that kid's being mean to this kid and beat him up. Like, and it's really the staff that was behind it. It was like, ugh, it enraged me. I reported it.
It's disgusting.
I reported it because it's so disgusting. Have you or the other kids called each other by their bio name on accident, or how was the response? I think is what it says. Yeah. Sometimes the kids get confused. Or when a child is first chosen to change their name, then it's confusing at first.
Yeah, it's that little transition period. Like, we had a hard time with Evie because we were so used to calling her this other name that she insisted we call, and then it was like it all changed. And same with like, I think Luke. Because he had the same name as one of our other brothers, and so it was constantly like, yeah.
Or when they end up meeting like back with their bio family in the future, we do like reunited videos. They call them by their other name a lot of times.
Yeah.
That's very common. What is the best part of being a mother to so many amazing children? I think just that. I feel like being a mom I feel so incredibly blessed. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm the one that's blessed to have each of the kids. They've each taught me something in their own way. They each have shown love in their own way. Like, and it's just so incredible to see them grow and learn and be, who they're meant to be. And I love that journey of it. What are the requirements to become a foster parent? There's a lot. And you will feel like it's super invasive. Like, they come and do interviews. They interview each one of the kids. They interview you. There's a ton of paperwork about your childhood traumas you've been through, how you were disciplined as a child, how you're going to choose to discipline a child, how your marriage is. Do you communicate in your marriage? You have to do references where they reach out to your family members or friends and they talk about, what do you think about their marriage? What do you think about how they are around kids? Like, there's a lot of interviews and a lot of like that back end of it. And then they go into your driving history. Like, they look at how many speeding tickets you have or what you've done in your cars. They come out and check your cars, make sure your seatbelts work. There's a whole list of stuff. You have to be CPR certified. Your house has to be safe. You have to have a fence around your pool. The list goes on, and I don't want that to seem overwhelming because it sounds like a lot, but they do take you through the process, like, over that 6-month period where you're getting everything. You do have to have an evacuation plan in your house, obviously fire alarms, like, safety-wise, medication locked up. Yeah, the list goes on. There's a lot, but it's worth it. It's really worth it. Are there any situations with kids in which you guys will not consider fostering/adopting? I think our really only one that we were like, we won't foster adopt is if it puts the safety of the other kids in our home in jeopardy.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I think if it's a safe situation, the kid can obviously stay. But we've had a few instances where the kids have a little too much trauma and try to reenact that with other kids, and then it's not safe.
Yes.
So
in situations like that, we wouldn't adopt.
Yeah.
And I think it's keeping open communication with everyone in the family and in the household. Because if there's something that's making someone feel uncomfortable, or if something that's like, hey, I overheard this situation or whatnot, like, and that's the thing is a lot of kids or a lot of people, kids will come into the situation like, don't be a snitch and don't blah blah blah, and like, your kids shouldn't run and tell you everything and that kind of thing. We don't have that in our house. I feel like we have very open communication with the kids, and if there's anything in any situation at all, they can come and talk to Erin or I and talk things through. But I think that's in all parenting in general, not just in foster care and adoption, but open communication in your household is key. Okay, last and final one. What's your favorite story about your journey through the years? Ooh, favorite story? There's so many.
I have a lot.
There's so many. Okay, let me think of mine real quick.
Going to Legoland with Hannah when we first met her. That was so fun. The whole bouncy house thing that we had with Savannah and Lucas when he came literally on, was it his birthday?
Yeah, it was on Lucas's birthday.
Yeah, that was so much fun. Every adoption day is like the most incredible and happy day for like everybody, and it's so fun. Like at Bella's adoption when we all went to like Disney World?
Disney World.
Yeah, Disney World. Like that was so fun. Yeah, I have so many.
I was like, I can't really choose between one favorite story. I will say, kind of like she was saying, there's just been so many favorite moments. And like the moment of us getting in the car after meeting Alex and Hannah for the first time, and Aaron just starts crying, and he's like, those are our forever kids. And so you had like that moment, and then you had on adoption day, Bella, Liam, and Rylan just have this like, once they said like it's official, like you're officially adopted, and they like have this little saying at the end, and it's like everyone's just could take a breath. Like it was just this like, I can't even describe the feeling in the room. But there's just been so many stories and so many times along that, telling Lucas and Savannah their adoption date. And just seeing them,
telling Jake his adoption date too after waiting for so long. I remember because we were in the backyard, and like we would always just like go out there and like play games and just like do whatever, and then finally like, we like played the game with him, and then yeah, like that was just such a sweet moment.
That was such a sweet moment. So there's just been so many amazing moments along the way, but life's definitely a journey. We've also had our struggles along the way, and continue to here and there have struggles along with these beautiful moments, and I think that's just all part of life, part of having kids and a family, and but all right, well, thank you so much for coming on our little adoption journey with all of us. Story time. But we really love and appreciate each and every one of you, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
You don't ever have to hide your pain. You don't need to dance around the rain. You're perfect, darling, I would never change. So when the weight feels heavy